The following clip is part of our APUSH study program. For more study materials, go to opaeducation.com and sign up now. Culturally, the U.S. continued to shift as well. As the U.S. continued its large transition from a rural agricultural economy to an urban industrial one, more and more people moved into cities. By 1920, a majority of Americans lived in urban areas which offered new economic and social opportunities for people, especially for immigrants looking for jobs. The war created migrations to urban centers, as factories were looking for more workers. The United States accepted more Mexican immigrants, and many settled in American cities. World War I also marked the beginning of the Great Migration, as many African Americans migrated north to work in factories and escaped the Jim Crow South, where violence against African Americans was prevalent. But Northerners still discriminated against African Americans and treated them as lesser citizens. One good thing that came out of this migration was a distinct formation of black culture in America. Especially as African Americans moved into places like Harlem and New York, literature, song, dance, and art movements were born, expressing ethnic identities in a number of different ways. Following the war, as with many post-war recoveries, the U.S. experienced a production and productivity boom. New technologies such as steam turbines, electric motors, and conveyor belts both increased the productive capacity of the U.S. economy and increased the standard of living for all Americans. Consumers had more spending power and prices were dropping. Construction companies experienced massive growth as cities began building skyscrapers and large residential buildings. Automobiles became more widely available and accessible. By 1929, 20% of the U.S. had a car, which is huge. This was in part due to the Model T Ford car, which became cheaper after Henry Ford began using conveyor belts to increase production. The economy overall allowed for greater mobility and communication for people across the U.S. Greater mobility allowed for mass immigration in the early 1900s, resulting in a growing nativist movement in the early 1920s. This culminated in the National Origins Act of 1921, which reduced immigration to 350,000 people. This hit Asian immigrants hardest because Europeans were prioritized. Quotas were cut again in 1924 to only allow 150,000 immigrants in per year. Mass media also began to take shape and influence the culture of America. Movies became big, and theaters drew tons of people. Radio popped up in the early 1920s as well, which allowed for more entertainment and a greater dissipation of news. It is also important to note that by 1920, Prohibition was in place. This created a black market for liquor, which led to a rise in gangs and gangsters such as Al Capone. Bootlegging occurred on a massive scale as well. As mentioned in the previous unit, the United States was transitioning from an agricultural economy to an industrial one. The panics of 1893 and 1907 began to raise the question of how much control the government should have over the economy. But both of these economic downturns would be outdone by the Great Depression. Oh, hi! Didn't see you there. That was me in the video. My name is Ben. If you enjoyed the video and want to quiz yourself on the information, go to the OPA Education website, opaeducation.com. Sign up for the OPA free plan and take the Unit 7 quiz right now.